What's good, YouTube? We back for another video, man. And before I get into it, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys, have been logged in on y'all journeys to take care of yourselves, right? So there is something. This is actually an important video I want to talk about because this is something that I feel like everybody needs to know, and that I'm just now like I already knew, but it's like I finally found the term for it. Okay. So I'm gonna talk about. This ain't gonna be a specific type of video. I'm just gonna be talking about basically why why majority of people will never be satisfied in life, whether it's relationships, money, physique, whatever. Right? The real reason why you can't be satisfied in life, or I ain't gonna say you, but majority of people will not be satisfied in life. The real reason why a lot of long-term relationships fail, right? you know, the real reason why even after people make a lot of money and get a lot of success, they still feel empty, right? Because, for a long time, I didn't understand how is that possible. I mean, how? How could you basically have everything that you've wanted and still feel unhappy or still feel empty or still feel like you need more, right? And I finally found the answer, okay? So it's called the hedonic adaptation, right? If y'all don't know what that means, it's basically your brain. This is how I look at it, right? Which I already thought about this, but I didn't know what the term was. Your brain, no matter what you achieve, no matter what you have in life, your brain will always physically want more, because that level of happiness that you've had, or that level of dopamine rush that you have over achieving something or getting a certain thing or whatever, eventually it will fade away and it will become your new normal, right? That's why a lot of people, even after they've gotten their dream physiques, they want more. That's why even a lot of millionaires, rich people, they want more. It's like your brain will always want you to want more out of life. And in a way, that could be a good thing and a bad thing, because it could be a good thing because that it helps you not stay complacent, right? Because it lets you know, like, okay, right, I can always achieve more. But it's a bad thing because of the fact that you will never really truly be satisfied with anything. It might cause you to like not be happy, even though you have all the success, and it might cause you to do something that you might regret, or you're gonna take extreme measures just to get that new level of happiness, right? Because like I said, when your brain adapts to that level of happiness or success or that dopamine, whatever it is, it would not feel like anything anymore, right? So I'm gonna give y'all a few examples to kind of explain to y'all what I mean, right? I'm not really good at explaining stuff, but I'm hoping y'all can understand, right? Let's say your physique, right? A lot of people have been training for 5 years. There's a lot of people on social media that have goated ass physiques, right? But the problem is that they always want more. We might think that they have a godlike physique and that we want to be like them, but in reality, they don't like their physique and they want more, right? That is their body dysmorphia, right? Like I would never think people like people that have like the top tier physiques in the world will actually not be happy with their physique, right? Because everybody else wants their physique, everybody else wants to look like them, but whole time they don't even like what they look like, right? And even if at some point they were happy with their physique, it became the new normal for them, right? So eventually, because especially when you start training for a long time and you don't make as much progress, you're basically going to kind of maintain your physique that you have. It's going to be hard to see any noticeable differences. And you'll think like if you already have built a solid level of muscle, you've already achieved like natural aesthetics, it'll be cool, right? But when people pay so much attention to their body and their physique, they think that it's like, okay, I need more, right? That's the trap of fitness, you know what I mean? Once again, using the hedonic adaptation, right? That's why a lot of people, even with God tier physiques, still take steroids or still suffer from body dysmorphia, because no matter how much muscle they put on, no matter how lean they get, they will never be satisfied. It is an ongoing treadmill that you can't escape from, right? I'm gonna give y'all another example, right? Relationships, okay? Now, this is very important. I want y'all to hear me out when I say this, because it's gonna make real sense, right? But this even applies to relationships, because let's say you're in a relationship with a girl and y'all been, together for a long time, right? There have been a lot of times where people will leave relationships because they're bored of it. My first ever girlfriend, right? She legitimately left me because she was bored of the relationship. She didn't say that, but basically that's what it was, right? A lot of people will walk away, or they might even cheat because the relationship is boring to them. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's something wrong with the relationship. It just means that it's boring. Like, it doesn't stimulate them, right? So what does that mean, right? So basically, when you first meet somebody that you like, the emotional stimulus from the girl and even you is at an all-time high. The dopamine rush is at an all-time high, right? Why? Because of the fact that you're starting to like this person, you're starting to fall in love with this person, and you're still getting to know who this person really is, right? And it's basically a mystery, right? It's a mystery for your brain to experience, right? Because your brain hasn't yet experienced things with this person. Okay, so what's gonna happen is that your brain is going to be more so like connected with this person, because it wants to, basically like experience new things, and it wants to see what this person is talking about, right? I probably didn't explain that. I probably didn't explain that the best way, but what I'm trying to say is that your dopamine rush, your emotional your emotional connection, everything when you first meet somebody, before you even date them, is at an all-time high. Okay? Because you have yet to experience things with this person. So everything that you experience with this person when you first meet them will be brand new. The first time you talk to them, the first time y'all do things together, that is going to be at an all-time high, because it's new experiences, right? But after, let's say, you date somebody, you start dating them, right? And you start being with them for a while. Over time, your brain will get used to that person. Girl or dude, your brain will get used to that person, right? So what's going to happen is that doesn't necessarily mean that, they don't love you no more, but it's not going to necessarily have the same effect as it did when you first met them, okay? So basically, because of this, a lot of people will actually leave long-term relationships simply out of boredom, or they might try to do something that might spike the relationship up, right? Because even then, right, a lot of, and when I say this, I really mean girls, right? Because this really affects girls, in my opinion, because they're the ones emotionally they are the ones emotionally connected, right? Their emotions is connected with everything, even when it comes to relationships, right? Us as dudes, we're more logical, but women are emotional. So they're emotionally stimulated by a relationship. So it really affects them. So really, you kind of have to worry, if you have to choose between who's going to get bored first, you have to lean more towards the girl, because she's the one that's emotionally stimulated by a relationship, right? So basically what that means is, like I said, using the hedonic adaptation, right? When she first saw you, she was in love with you, she liked you, she got all these new experiences, all these new feelings towards you and stuff like that, stimulated towards you. But the thing about it is that the longer you be with this person, the more the hedonic adaptation is going to set in, and it's going to get to the point where it's not going to necessarily you're not going to necessarily have the same effect on her 5-10 years later as you did when you first met her. Okay. And that goes with anything. Like, let's say you get a new car, right? When you probably got a new car, you probably was so happy. You was so excited. Oh, you was like, oh my God, you was probably driving it every single day and everything, right? You was probably driving it all the time. You probably couldn't stop talking about it, right? But after around maybe 2, 3 years, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, eventually you're not going to feel that way. Not saying that you still won't like your car, but it's not going to give you that same excitement or happiness as it did when you first got it. Okay, does that make sense? I'm hoping y'all understand, because this is literally, we all do this. It's been programmed to us since kids. That's why, anytime as kids when we get toys, right, we're so happy. But eventually we'll get tired or bored of those toys and we want some more. When we see something new, we want that. Okay. This hedonic adaptation is built within all of us, right? And that is actually the real reason why majority of us, 99% of people, not gonna say 99%, but majority of us can't be satisfied with anything, because our brain is always going to be programmed and wired to want more, to want to continue to feel that happiness, right? This even goes with drugs, right? I personally don't do drugs, but it's same thing, right? Let's say you smoke weed or something like that. I'm using that as an example, right? I don't smoke, but I can still apply it, right? Because even when it comes to smoking or drinking, right? If you smoke that same strand or whatever like that, like, you probably smoked a strong strand for the first time, it probably got you high out your mind, right? You know what I mean? And got you out the clouds. But if you continue to smoke that same strand over and over and over for a long period of time, eventually your brain will get used to it and it won't give you that same effect as it did when you first did it. So now you're low-key gonna have to do more or get a stronger strain in order to get you high. And same thing with drinking, right? If you continue to take the same amount of shots, right, you're not going to get as drunk. Probably when you first started drinking, it didn't take much for you to get drunk, right? It didn't take much for you to get drunk. But the thing about it is that your brain, your body will adapt to it, right? That's what our body is used for. Our brain, everything, we adapt to everything. That is what our brain does. It's a survival mechanism, right? So even when you drink, right, if you continue taking that same shot or whatever, or I don't know. I personally don't do that shit. But if you do that, you're not going to get that same effect. So you have to drink more to still get that same effect. That's why a lot of people that drink, they talk about their limit, right? So basically what I'm saying is that this is basically a treadmill and stuff like that. And this is the reason why a lot of people that are successful are still not happy, because even though they got all this success, even though they got everything they ever wanted, they're always going to want more. You know what I mean? And that is kind of depressing, because it's like a treadmill. And honestly, it's just something that's wired into us, right? I mean, it's nothing we can necessarily do about it. But it really does affect relationships, especially because, like I said, especially women, because they're the ones emotionally stimulated. And like I said, right, like a girl, when she first met you, she was probably in love with you, happy, missed you so much. Like her all-time happiness for you was I don't even say happiness. Her excitement for you when she first met you was at an all-time high, because her brain was experiencing something new. The first time y'all went on a date, the first time y'all did this, the first time y'all did this, right? But after, let's say you with her for 4 or 5, 6, it don't even take long. Sometimes 2, 3, 4, she'll start to get bored, right? And you're not going to necessarily be able to give her that same excitement or stimulate her emotions the same way you did when you first met her. And it's kind of nothing you could do about it, because that's kind of what it is. She's going to get used to you. And that right there could be a bad thing, because she probably still wants to be emotionally stimulated. But the thing about it is that she's used to you. And I'm not saying that she don't still love you, but it's like, that's why a lot of people say, like, oh, you got to do different things. You got to, like, switch it up. This is why they say that, because if you don't, the relationship is going to get boring very fast, especially for the girl, right? Because since they're emotionally connected to it. But still, like I said, the problem is that if once they get bored, it's kind of hard to get them out of that. And this is it's a lot of risk that can come with that, right? Getting cheated on, getting left, all that shit. So what does that mean, right? I basically just had to start, and I want to come on here and bring it so y'all can, like, so I can kind of explain to y'all, because that is the reality of relationships and just life in general. No matter what, you will always adapt to anything. And basically, that is the real reason why a lot of people can't seem to be happy even after having everything they wanted. That's the real reason why a lot of long-term 5-6 year relationships fail. Marriages fail, right? A lot of people, even with good dream physiques, even with all the money in the world, they're still not happy because of the hedonic adaptation, man. Okay? So that is the real reason why, right? So let me know what y'all think about the hedonic adaptation, right? Y'all actually look this shit up, bro, because it actually made a lot of sense now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Like, comment, subscribe, man. And yeah, see you on the next one. Peace.